In my business, you prepare for the unexpected.
And what business is that?
I help people with problems.
Problem solver?
More of a problem eliminator. We are the Spy-Fi guys, and this is License to Kill.
Welcome back to the Spy-Fi Guys, where we cover spy fact, spy fiction, and everything in between. And today we are all in on spy fiction with the greatest fictional spy of all time, James Bond. And what did we pick for our first James Bond movie? Not the first James Bond movie, Dr. No, not the first rebooted Daniel Craig starring one, Casino Royale, but instead the second Timothy Dalton one, License to Kill. Because why do anything traditionally?
Well, part of it is also because, I think we talked about this on the podcast before. This is a film that famously your parents wouldn't let you watch.
That's right. I remembered it being in like the first 2 minutes, the scene where, spoiler alert, Felix gets attacked by the shark. And then my mom was like, this is too violent, turn it off. So I never watched it my whole life, or the other Timothy Dalton one, which was apparently the one before this one, The Living Daylights.
Yeah, and that one's much less violent, actually, so it's kind of funny.
Yeah, I'm not sure why I never got around to watching it again, because I do like James Bond, but I'm happy to be watching it now. And it is kind of nice to be watching a new, in quotation marks, James Bond movie.
Yeah, right. It's something you've never seen before, and well, I've seen all of them a lot, but this is probably one of the ones I've seen the least.
It must be kind of like how the British BBC studio executives must have felt when they found those old episodes of Doctor Who in a warehouse in Colombia.
Right.
They thought it all burned down. We should say, I'm Zach and this is Christian.
Yes, hello.
We always seem to forget that. It's probably what the intro. All right, so the synopsis.
Synopsis. James Bond goes rogue and sets off to unleash vengeance on a drug lord who tortured his best friend, a CIA agent, and left him for dead and murdered his bride after he helped capture him. It's kind of wordy.
Also a little spoilery.
Right?
So already I have a question for you.
Sure.
And I was hoping this movie was going to explain exactly what the deal is with the License to Kill. So can James Bond just kill anybes? Can he kill civilians?
No, well, I think it's more of a, it doesn't really explain it, but it's more of, he's got his target and he is licensed to kill that target.
But he kills plenty of other people along the way.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so it's a gray area.
Well,
fun story about the title. It was originally called License Revoked, but when they tested that title amongst American audiences, we didn't know what it meant.
What? How can we not know what it meant?
I don't know. So they Middle America apparently didn't know what License Revoked meant, so they changed it to License to Kill.
Well, if you're not familiar with James Bond, I can understand not knowing, when they say License Revoked, they mean his license to kill. So that's less of a problem. I think License to Kill is just a better name anyway.
Maybe.
But,
Except it's like an ironic name because for most of the film, he doesn't have his license to kill.
And I sort of thought the License to Kill would be more about... I know we're sort of kind of getting into the movie, but I was hoping that the movie would center around the whole idea of him not being able to kill people. So have you ever played this video game called Dishonored?
No.
So I haven't played it either, but there's a thing in it where you're an assassin. Your job is to take out these people of high importance in this fictional world. And you can kill them or you can ruin their life. You can plant evidence or trick them or otherwise get them either put in prison or fired from their job or, whatever. And that's what I was hoping James Bond was going to do here, where he can't just go around killing people. He has to come up with some other solution to his problem.
Yeah, well, to be fair, he doesn't. He does do a lot more sort of trickery in this one than some of the other ones.
That's true. Okay, so
let's get into the plot.
Yes, let's do it.
So we start off with a shot of the Key West Drug Enforcement, and they're finding out that this drug dealer Franz Sanchez, has left his base in Isthmus City for reasons unknown to him at the time. And, this is their one chance to get him. And so you cut to Felix Leiter, Bond's longtime CIA CIA buddy, yeah.
Yeah.
Friend, yeah. His longtime CIA friend who's getting married, and Bond's his best man.
Yep. So they're stuck in the back of the car and they're wearing gray tuxedos, which looked familiar to me. I think I've also been to a wedding where they wear gray tuxedos. So it's them.
Not quite the point
Not
of
tuxedos?
no. It's morning dress, similar to what I wore at my wedding.
That's
actually.
what, because I went and looked at pictures of your wedding because I was like, this looks familiar. Did he dress his wedding party like from this movie? But not quite.
No, well, not specifically from this movie, but I mean, it is traditional morning dress. Although theirs looks like cheap rentals.
Oh, come on. Well, a government salary doesn't
It
pay that well.
Also, it is the '80s, which is the decade that style forgot.
I didn't think it looked that bad though. These James Bond movies often look pretty timeless. I think that's a costuming decision. But anyway, so in the back of the car is Felix, James Bond, and Sharky.
Yeah, so Sharky is a buddy of Felix and James, apparently.
But we've never seen him before, right?
We've never met him before, no.
Okay, because I was wondering about that. I take it he's not on the books or anything either.
Nope. So there is a similar character who's in Dr. No and in Live and Let Die, whose name is Quarrel. And they could have just made this also Quarrel, but they didn't.
Maybe they probably didn't want to pay the rights to the character, to the original movie.
I mean, they own it, but that's besides the point. So when they're in the car, they see this helicopter come by with a sign that says "Follow me," and they pull over the side, and they find that and so the people in the helicopter are from the DEA, and they brief Felix Leiter, who's been working with them, to try to let them know that hey, Sanchez is actually in the Bahamas, and we can catch him, and we have the go-ahead from Jamaica already.
But it's my wedding day. Whoa, wacky. What am I going to do? It's like a sitcom plot. But not in like a bad way. It's just a strange way to start this latest. Because I was told this was like a very gritty, serious James Bond.
Yeah. Well, we'll get there. So Sanchez is apparently going after his girlfriend who has escaped from his villa or the country to be with some other guy, and so he finds, and that's why he's out of Isthmus City, and so he finds her, seemingly kills the dude who's cheating on him with, and whips her with like a manta eel tail.
Very uncomfortable.
That's what that was.
I don't think they'd have that in a James Bond movie nowadays. Also, Sanchez is played by Robert Davi or Davey, and I recognized him. I couldn't remember where I recognized him from. He was in Die Hard.
He is also in The Goonies.
I do not remember The Goonies as well as I remember Die Hard, but that's correct. Who is he in The Goonies?
He's one of the siblings of like the villain sibling pairs, or I don't remember exactly what his character's name is, but yeah, he's one of the villains. Yeah,
he's always the villain. Poor guy.
Yeah.
His girlfriend also looked familiar, but I couldn't figure out where I knew her from.
I think she's in Spy Hard as well as a few other things. Gets Lupe, his girlfriend, and brings up, goes to a plane, and on the way to the plane, he rolls into the brush to try to throw people off. So Lupe is about to get on the plane, and at this point, Bond and Felix and the DEA agents come up, and they basically set her free. And find that there's no one on the plane, no Sanchez, and they don't know where he is.
Dun dun dun. Also, at one point, at one point, Felix is like, "I'm going to go take care of this. Stay here, James." Do you remember that?
Yeah.
So after he says, "Stay here, James," Timothy Dalton does a smolder, a blue steel kind of expression. And I was like, "What?"
Well, he is the most serious of the Bonds, I think, other than Daniel Craig.
Okay. Well, that's what I was hoping, is that his movies were going to reflect that sort of attitude. Does it? Stay tuned. Anyway.
Yeah. So when we find that Sanchez has gotten on a different plane and is trying to get away, and Bond spots him, and they go up in the helicopter, and they basically pull off the same stunt they did in The Dark Knight Rises.
Oh, they expect one of us in the wreckage, brother? That scene?
Yep, that scene. So they go, Bond and the DEA agents go above Sanchez's plane with a helicopter. Bond, goes out of the plane on a hook, loops, a wire around the tail of it, and then they pull the helicopter up, and the plane is dangling from the end. And Nolan is a huge Bond fan, and he flat out stole that for The Dark Knight Rises from The Living Daylights.
So did he admit it?
I don't know if he's actually admitted, but everyone knows that it's straight out of there.
This part was pretty sweet.
Mm-hmm.
I do. It is nice seeing like practical stunts again.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we tune in James Bond movies for. There had to have been an easier way to take him down.
I mean, they didn't have any guns on that chopper, so I don't think if there's really and basically it was Bond's idea, and they were like, everyone else was like, oh, he got away. I was like, no, let's go, I have this idea. So clearly they didn't have any other ideas.
So this scene reminded me a lot of Mitchell from Mystery Science Theater. So if you've ever seen that, Jodan Baker is a cop, and the climax of the movie is him chasing a guy on a plane while Mitchell is in a helicopter shooting out the window, and they're only 15 minutes from international waters. And I'm not saying they stole it, or maybe Mitchell stole it from James Bond. I wouldn't be surprised, because obviously this is a much better movie.
Well, that's funny because Jodan Baker is in three other Bond movies, one of which is Living Daylights with Timothy Dalton.
Ooh, I'm looking forward to that then.
Yeah.
I remember him being a little grating in GoldenEye. You know how those Americans are.
Yeah.
I'm not sure helicopters can outrun airplanes, by the way.
It would probably depend on the kind of chopper and the kind of plane. Like, he was in a little Cessna, so maybe.
Yeah, they probably don't go that fast. And so they come back and they parachute into Felix's wedding.
Right when Della's telling everyone to go home. Della, being Felix's fiance and soon-to-be wife, is like telling them, "I'm sorry, go home." And then everyone spots them and sees them land. And my favorite little moment here was that when they go into the chapel, you have the people carrying the bride's train, and then you have other like bridesmaids who are carrying the parachutes like trains.
That's nice. I didn't see that. That's a funny touch. It's too bad we didn't actually get to see the wedding itself.
I mean, it would have dragged down the movie. All you really need to do is see them go into chapel and assume that they're going to get married, and then you see the party afterwards. But before we see the party, we get this title sequence with the song "License to Kill" by Gladys Knight. What did you think of it?
The song?
Oh no, just the song credits. And the title sequence.
So Christian, I have a question for you.
Yes.
You're a James Bond fan.
Yes.
Do you ever get bored with these opening credits?
In the 80s, they get a little kind of tired.
It's always guns. It's always naked women. It's like, maybe for a change, can we have opening credits that doesn't have those things once?
Casino Royale doesn't, actually. I mean, they have guns, but there's no naked women, and it's all very card motif.
So, right. That is probably why I really liked it, because when I first saw Casino Royale, that jumped out to me as very enjoyable. But back to this one, as you might have been able to deduce, I was a little bored for the credits. And the music, I thought, was just sort of like your average 80s song.
So apparently, this one was actually very heavily inspired by Goldfinger. There's a certain riff in there that's like straight out of Goldfinger.
So Gladys Knight performed it, but it said music by Michael Kamen. Was he the one who wrote the song too?
No, he's the one who did the score.
Okay, so do you know Michael Kamen?
He is the composer from, I think, the first 3 Die Hards and all the Lethal Weapons.
Yeah, I know him from Band of Brothers.
Ah, that too. But yeah, so it was very much like they were trying to bring in that sort of 80s action movie vibe into the movie.
Well, it works for me, but then you think the music was part of that?
Mm-hmm. I can see that. Well, yeah.
I did notice that the James Bond classic riffs and themes were not in it that much, which made me appreciate it more when it did appear.
True. So we cut to the party and yeah, so there's a weird scene where Della, Felix's new wife, says, the bride always gets to kiss the best man. I was like, what? That's not any tradition that I've ever heard of.
That scene was so inappropriate.
So there's this theory in the Bond that Della was like an old flame of Bond's who got together with Felix, and that's why they have a that they're very close.
I mean, we're very close for the very short amount of time that they're together
Yeah.
in this movie. But that's fine. I mean, I could see that. But then we also have Ed Killinger come by. He's like, I came by to kiss the bride too.
Yeah, well, Killifer, not Killinger, but yes.
Oh, excuse me. And then we also meet Pam. I have a note that we meet Pam.
So she's briefly there. So Della's trying to get Felix out to cut the cake, so sends Bond to go get him. And when Bond goes into his office, you just see this woman in there. You have no idea who she is, and you just see her walking out, basically.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I remember now.
Yeah.
And Felix is like, it's not what you think. It's kind of funny how we're more uptight about that stuff now than we were in 1989. Or at least maybe I am. Can't speak for anybody else. But the scene with Della kissing James Bond on the mouth was like very WTF.
Yeah. So, anyways, we met Killifer a little bit. You know, he's in the office and he works with the DEA agents.
Mm-hmm.
And we see, you know, so he's interrogating Sanchez and trying to get him to confess, telling him how much, you know, I should have written down with the number of how many, you know, different counts and how many life sentences.
Mm-hmm. It's like 900 years in prison or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. So he said, not even one of your famous $1 million bribes would get you out of it. He said, this one is $2 million.
Yep.
Killifer with a name like Killifer, you know he's going to turn out to be bad.
I didn't see it coming.
So Killifer is on the convoy transport Sanchez to Quantico, which from the Florida Keys, that's a long drive.
Yeah, that's long. It's almost like you could set up an ambush the whole way there. Also, right before they put him on, he gets mobbed. Sanchez gets mobbed by a bunch of reporters. And I just have one of them wrote down a question: Are you really
Colombian?
It's like, what?
That's I don't know. I remember us hearing that too. I was like, that's a random thing. Like all the other questions seem sort of relevant, but that was, are you really a Colombian?
Like,
really?
That's your question for the mass murderer drug lord who just got captured by the police. I would have been like, how are you feeling about finally having your drug reign come to an end? That's just me. So then we also cut back to the party, like a post-wedding party, and I noticed there's a guy in a pool up to his knees while wearing his morning dress and popping a champagne bottle.
Yep. And with there were some girls in the pool too, I think.
Yeah, now that's a party.
Yeah.
And then the only other thing that happens there is they give him a lighter that says to James from Felix and Della. And then when they light it, it causes like a minor explosion.
Yeah, it is a very powerful lighter. Yeah.
Well, it's a good gift for James Bond then.
Mm-hmm. And also, so when we saw Felix in his office and he's, you know, making his report, putting in his files, we see that he hides his CD behind a picture of Della. Now, I didn't know CDs were a thing in 1989 yet.
They were like cutting edge spy gear.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I thought at that time they were still using floppy disks.
Oh yeah. I couldn't say.
Yeah. So anyway, what's his name? Killifer knocks during the convoy. He knocks out the other guy and drives
the driver. And then crashes the truck off the bridge.
So when I was watching this, my wife was like, "Didn't they use this do this in another movie?" He's like, "They've done this in anytime you show a prisoner transport, there's gonna be something to break them out."
Yeah, but maybe she meant not in this particular way, like involving a bridge and an underwater extraction with divers.
And but she was right though. They did this in the most recent Mission Impossible.
Yeah, they did. They did. Mm-hmm. Also, I feel like James Bond goes underwater a lot.
He does.
Is that borne out? Not just in Thunderball, in a bunch of them.
Well, yes. So he does. There's each Bond has maybe at least one where he does some sort of scuba thing.
Maybe because it's easy to film.
That, and I think it's also just because, at least in the original novel, it was because it was, Fleming loved to put his own interests into Bond novels, and so he liked, diving, and so he'd put those in a lot.
Okay, well. Certainly commandos do water attacks, so it makes sense. And he is in the Navy as they keep reminding us in this movie when they call him Commander.
Commander Bond, yes.
Okay, so the drivers extract Sanchez and Killefer, and then we cut back to James and Della, and they're giving him the garter.
Oh, yes.
This is not something Jews do either, and it strikes me as really uncomfortable in every situation that it comes up.
Oh, well, and we can save this for another podcast, but I can tell you many, or even just off air, just tell you many awkward stories about garter tosses at weddings.
It sounds so awkward. I mean, the bouquet tosses are a whole lot better.
But, well, this is probably the least awkward garter toss because it's not like, there's all these men around who are, she's just throwing it to him. And then we get a reference to how Bond was married once.
Yeah, continuity. I like that. And then
actually, so in these movies, really, like that whole thing about Tracy dying is the one thing that, like, continuity-wise, that keeps, being put forward as making, really saying that this is the same guy. Aside from the Daniel Craig movies.
Yeah, this theory or this movie, the reference to him being married, I was just talking to somebody about this earlier, is it hurts the narrative that they're different people, but doesn't kill it because they didn't say her name was Tracy. He could have been married to anybody, and then it didn't work out. Just saying.
I mean, it's real. Like the whole, and I'm surprised this has not come up. Well, we haven't talked too much Bond before, but the whole code name theory, where James Bond's a code name, it doesn't work.
I know it doesn't work, but I think it's so cool. I really like it.
No, I hate it. It's terrible, and I hate it because it just means that we're not even following the same guy. So what's the point?
Because it's entertaining. It's entertainment. Yeah. It's not like it's real. So who cares?
But I mean, it's no other character besides James Bond do we get this theory. Like, how many people have played Batman, but no one thinks, oh, it's a new actor. It must be an entirely different guy, or anything
Batman
like that.
With all the different multiverses and shit. I mean, you could say James Bond. There's a greater James Bond multiverse. Who knows? The human imagination is powerful. But maybe we should get back to the actual movie.
Yeah.
So there's reference to the marriage, and then Sanchez comes back for revenge on Felix.
So he kidnaps Felix and kills Della. And he brings them to this warehouse, which is their distribution center for their cocaine. And they have a little trap door where there's a shark.
Yes, this is the infamous shark part, which I thought was much earlier, but now here it is.
Yeah, so Felix gets a leg and part of an arm, bitten off by a shark, which is actually in the original novels. It happens much earlier in the novel of License or Living Daylights, which is the second Bond novel. That's when he gets, an arm it's an arm and part of a leg bitten off.
So the idea is that from now on, whenever we see Felix in subsequent movies, including Casino Royale, he's missing a leg and part of an arm.
Yes. Well, in the original, so the order of the books is different than the order of the movies. So Casino Royale was the first one. That's when you meet him for the first time, and then every other time after that, he's missing an. I don't think he's missing a leg till later. I think it's just the arm.
Okay, wait a second. So Casino Royale is a reboot.
Yes.
Okay, so it's not in continuity with this one.
No.
Okay,
but in the original novels, it was Casino Royale first, and then then the License to Kill, Live and Let Die, and then Moonraker, Goldfinger, Thunderball, etc.
Okay, so Sanchez mutilates Felix and kills Della.
Kind of implied that his henchmen rape her too.
I don't know where you got that impression.
Well, it's from
the movie.
Yes, well, it's from what's his face, Benicio del Toro. He said, "Don't worry, we gave her a nice honeymoon." I
think you can kind of go either way. Maybe I'm just liking to see the more positive side of people. I interpreted that as, oh, we killed her. Whatever. I also like the part right before that where James Bond's going to the airport and he's doing his thing, and then the airport agent, whose name is escaping me right now. Oh God.
I don't think she had a name.
No, not the name. What do you call people who have that job?
Oh.
The ticket seller?
Yeah.
The airport ticket seller is like, some big drug dealer just escaped. I don't know, whatever. It's like, what? You'd think you'd be a little bit harder. But I did notice also that James Bond takes Della's death a lot harder than like every other Bond girl death we've seen so far.
Yeah, well, because I mean, I think it's, well, I wouldn't say that. I mean, I'd say depends on the character. I think it's because she wasn't mixed up in the plot like a lot of other Bond girls are. If they're the girlfriend of the bad guy, or if it's a fellow agent or something. This is she's out of the game. She's not anyone's. I mean, she's like Felix's wife, but it's still not someone who should have been involved in this ever. So I think that's why.
And the connection to Felix too. That Felix is going to be sad.
Plus, it sort of ties into that if she's an old flame of Bond's, he'd take that hard too.
Yeah, but some good acting from Timothy Dalton. He didn't overdo it.
Yeah, and so Bond finds Della's body, and also finds Felix's body with a note pinned to him saying he disagreed with something that ate him.
I don't think I like one-liners when bad guys say them. I like them when James Bond says them. So he takes Felix to the hospital, and then Sharky has a line where he says, "I know a shark bite when I see one." So is it like a coincidence that he's named Sharky and also knows about sharks?
No, that's not a coincidence. That's a nickname. Come on. That's probably why he's nicknamed Sharky, is because he knows about sharks.
Oh. Well, but like maybe it would have helped if he had like a job or something that had to do with sharks or something. I feel like there's a lot left on the cutting room floor. Did the book explain it? Oh, wait, you said he's not in the book.
Well, there is no book for License to Kill.
Okay.
Yeah. They take parts of The Living Daylights and the Hildebrand Rarity and a few other Bond short stories and mash them together.
Okay. So we get this confrontation in the hospital room where Bond wants to go after them, and then Felix's CIA buddies are like, "No, we're going to deal with it." I like that part. Very machismo. I like the part where James Bond is like, "There are other ways to do it," and then someone is like, "Let it go, Commander."
Bond and Sharky go off on their own, and so they start going to any place that might have or sell sharks, and so they go to the last one, which is Milton Crest's place, and which is the place which was the cover for the distribution center. He asks him, I'm looking for a Carcarius. What? A great white shark. And
I'm going to assume that Sharky told him that, because Sharky's the shark expert.
Probably, but also it's like an aquarium or something like that, or I guess a vendor for fish wildlife. They should know scientific names.
Yeah, but I mean, the guy, I think, did he say that to the owner who looked like John Voight, or did he say that?
He does. No, he said it to the henchman.
Yeah, so the henchman's not going to know. The henchman's like, "Dude, come on, just work here." So, yes. So obviously John Voight can't help him out. He gives him the cold shoulder in like a very not subtle manner.
Yeah, but while he's leaving, on the ground he sees Felix Leiter's boutonniere from his wedding.
Oh, that's what that was.
Yeah.
I was like, why is the camera focusing on the trash?
Yeah, so Felix comes and Sharky come back later that night, and apparently Killefer is there to be dropped off somewhere else in the sub.
That's right. So we get some solid James Bond infiltration and fighting of mooks. And including some James Bond deaths, like when he drops the guy into an electric eel tank.
Right. Which I'm pretty sure that's not how electric eels work.
I think they can kill people, but I don't think they make like lightning.
Right? Yeah.
But we like to imagine. Also, what about the cigar of the maggots? I don't think that guy was dead.
Probably not, so just knocked out, but I mean that is a lot of maggots.
Yeah, it's probably it's like something out of a horror movie. Then he takes on Killefer too, and beats him up pretty easily.
Yeah. And so he puts him over the same trap door that he had Felix on, and says, "Come on, buddy, there's 2 million in there. I'll split it with you." And Bond's like, "No thanks, you keep it," and throws it at him. So he lets go of the hook and falls down at the sharks. And then Sharky's got a nice line here: "What a terrible waste of money."
Womp womp womp. I also like Bond being like, "You keep it." I thought that was a good one-liner too. I also like here how Sharky has actual motivation to be helping Bond, as opposed to just being some random person that he like picked up in his travels.
Because he was a friend of Felix's, yeah.
Yeah, and he like seemed to know what he's doing where there's trouble about. Okay, James Bond goes to the Hemingway house, which is full of cats.
Yeah,
I think because Ernest Hemingway liked cats.
Probably. So yeah,
Mhm.
so it was one of Felix's DEA buddies, found him and said, "Come on this way," and you
Mhm.
find that M and a bunch of MI6 agents are all in the Hemingway house, and he basically, says, that you were supposed to be where I don't remember where he was
It's
supposed to
playing
be
to
on an assignment.
Istanbul, I think.
Istanbul, that's right. Yeah, and and Bond's like, "No, I need to help out. I need to solve this and figure and get justice for Leiter." And he's like, "Spare me the sentimental rubbish."
Do you feel like this is kind of character assassination of M?
No, at least this version of M was much more uptight than the Bernard Lee M. I'm
Yeah.
trying to remember who this actor is, but yes, after Bernard Lee died, he took over as M for about 2 movies, and he was much less. Robert Brown, that's the actor's name. He
Mm.
was much less sort of kind and warm to James as the Bernard Lee M was.
I can kind of see where M is coming from,
Hmm.
especially because it's like, well, if they need him to go to Istanbul, there's probably something they need for him to be doing.
Yeah.
They're not just not letting him do it because they feel like being jerks. But come on, he's like he's saved the world like 20 times or something. Cut him a little bit of slack.
Right.
I
And
also
yeah.
like
So.
where he's like, we're not a country club 007.
Hmm. Yeah. And he revokes his license to kill,
Mhm.
and asks for his his sidearm, and this is where Bond throws in Hemingway references. I guess this is a farewell to arms.
I hated that. So bad.
I like that.
I like that it was the Hemingway house, like just in case you don't get it.
So when that happens, Bond kicks. It looked like he kicked M for a second, but I think he actually kicked the MI6 agent next to him and escapes. And M's like, "Godspeed, Commander."
A little bit of mixed messaging, but
Right.
hey, we all of our people we got to answer to, and
Mhm.
just as much as anybody else.
So we cut to a boat, which is the Wave Crest, which has Milton Crest, the guy who you referred to as John Voight.
He really does look like John Voight.
Well, yeah. So it's his boat, and Lupe is on board.
Mhm.
And so Bond has figured out that Milton Crest is the one, well, is involved in it somehow. And so he goes aboard the Wave Crest. And before he gets on board, he's disguised as a manta ray, which I thought was ridiculous.
Yeah, almost as ridiculous as the scuba suit / tuxedo from Doctor No.
No, that's just from Goldfinger. Man, no, that's just awesome.
Okay. Yeah, let's get it right. Manta ray, ridiculous. Other one, much better. So I also
Yes,
noticed
exactly.
that their cover is that the Wave Crest is a research vessel, but then they have guards with like machine guns walking around.
Eh, I mean, it's very important research.
Sure, totally. Okay. And then so Bond gets in, he infiltrates as he does, and
Hmm.
he meets up with Lupe, and they have a conversation, and she says it was my fault I made him angry in reference to the whipping
Beginning.
scars,
Yeah.
which is of
Yeah.
course a domestic violence cliche.
Yeah. And those
But
did not look.
well, I mean, the
Those look
movie
pretty.
portrayed it as bad, so I don't
Oh yeah,
have a
yeah.
problem with it. But I guess this is sort of where people are coming from when they say that this movie is more hardcore and more violent and serious and so on.
But so he finds, like you said, he meets up with Lupe, and apparently, so Bond is looking for Sanchez, but Sanchez isn't on board, and she doesn't know where he is. As they're talking out the window, you see another ship come up, a smaller boat come up, and it's got a
Mhm.
bunch of sharks hanging from it, and then also it's got Sharky hanging from it. And
Yes, they
so
got
Sharky
Sharky.
gets to
Sorry,
go.
Sharky.
Yeah.
15 minutes of screen time and eternity in our hearts.
Hmm. And so Bond sees this, he's pissed off, goes out, pretty much just walks outside, grabs a spear gun, and shoots the guy who came up on the boat and says, "Compliments of Sharky."
Yeah, his first kill after losing his license to kill.
Yeah.
Because that's our man.
And so he dives into the water and takes the guy who he shot's his oxygen tank.
Yeah, I love
Uses
that.
it.
That
Yeah.
was awesome. Then he goes up to the Sentinel machine and like starts to like mess with it.
Yeah, so they're doing, the reason they're out there is because they're doing a drug deal. So they send the Sentinel out with all the cocaine, and trade. Oh no, so Centaur had cash, and they traded for the cocaine from a seaplane.
Right.
And so, yeah, Bond, after they make the trade, Bond, stabs all the cocaine, so it just disintegrates into the water, which means there's just a bunch of. I don't know anything about cocaine, so I don't know if that was going to like affect all the fishes around there.
They taught us in 7th grade that dilution is the solution to pollution, and you can't get more diluted than that. So I think they're probably okay.
Yeah, and then he harpoons the seaplane and uses it to water ski.
Yeah, well, not only does that, he does it while fighting a bunch of guys
That's true, yeah.
underwater.
Yeah.
So it reminds me of when I would play Arkham Asylum and you'd grapple away from guys before they beat the shit out of you.
Yeah, my wife commented on this, that she said it was like much better underwater scene than Thunderball.
Like the really, really long fight scene where they're all using the spearguns. So yes, the water skiing was my favorite part.
It was pretty cool, yeah.
I like the music. I like that it was very real. It looked like a very real stunt, and it was great.
Yeah, so he water skis and then gets up to the boat and gets on one of the pontoons and gets into the boat and throws the other two guys inside there off the plane. So, yeah.
Why did you even have an emergency door release?
For emergencies? I don't know.
But it's like, it seems very unsafe that you can like hit a button and then the door will just fall off, along with whoever's holding on to it, which is exactly what happens. I don't know. Whatever. That scene was great too. Like him climbing on it, fighting it, taking control. This is what we tune into James Bond for.
Yep. So he sneaks back to the lighter house and realizes, okay, they may have trashed the place, but it's pretty clear that he wants to see if they got the one thing that he knew they were really looking for, which was Leiter's files. And so he checks behind the CD checks for the CD behind the photo of Della, puts it into the computer, and finds the database. And it's database follows the informants he's been working with, and like he sees that most of them are dead except for one, P. Bouvier, and it shows when the next meeting they had set up was supposed to be.
There's only one informer left. Will that informer be a hot chick? Have you seen a James Bond movie before?
Yeah. So he finds her at the bar that the meeting was set for, which is a very 80s looking bar.
It's great. It's such a great bar. It's like right out of that movie, The Warriors. I don't know. Never mind. This is like you've seen it before if you've seen an 80s movie.
And so he finds, and it looks like P. Bouvier is Pam, who is the woman that was, briefly seen in the beginning in the after wedding scene, and so she, he tells her that that Felix got incapacitated, and then apparently there's a bunch of Sanchez's men who are there,
right,
who've been watching to see who would show up to meet her. And then you've got, and Dario comes in too, and so,
Dario, aka Benicio del Toro.
So you sit down at their table, and I like this moment where, they're ordering Bud with lime, and the waitress comes back, and he's like, "Are you paying cash?" And then the guy, one of the henchmen, is like, "I'll get it," but he's really about to pull out a gun, and Bond just, punches him in the face and says, "He's had enough. Run a tab."
Run a tab. Also, what a polite henchman. Also, can we talk about the Bud Lights with limes? Because I remember when Daniel Craig became you see where I'm going with this? Became the
I know exactly what you're going to start talking about.
And people were like, James Bond doesn't drink beer. He only drinks martinis or other kind of fancy stuff.
It's just because people are ridiculous. And I mean, Bond's drinking, like in Dr. No, in the very first movie, he drinks some Red Stripe, which is a beer.
Okay.
And it's not a big deal.
Yeah. So I assumed he had Bud with first of all, normal Bud with a lime, whatever. I assumed he had that because that's what she was having, but I just thought that was funny. I liked how Pam had a shotgun under the table.
Right.
I was like,
how did she get that in there? Into the bar. There's nowhere she could have hid that.
Yeah, I was like, tell Jabba even I get bored at sometimes.
But is Dario gonna say McClunky?
Oh God. I was hoping to forget about that.
Nope. Yeah, there's a little bit of Star Wars for you guys there.
Okay, so eventually though, they can't put it off anymore. And a bar fight starts with
Yep.
another one of my favorite tropes from these old school movies where if one person punches another person in the bar, everyone will
Everyone
suddenly
starts
jump up.
fighting, right?
It's like apparently there's like deep-seated seething resentments from everyone in the bar. They just can't wait to take out at the slightest excuse.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of funny things that happen in this bar fight, including one of the henchmen grabs the swordfish from the wall and tries to spear Bond with it.
That was amazing. I want to know who came up with that idea. I wanted to shake their hand because that is so good.
Yeah, so they fight, and Pam uses her shotgun to create a giant hole
Like
in
an
the
enormous
wall.
hole.
Like that is a ridiculously sized hole. And also, if you look at the wood, it's not like it's very thin wood either. So, like, how powerful is that? Does that shotgun have to be to do that?
Is she loaded with like titanium?
Right?
It was more like we need them to shoot through the wall, so just do it. So she blows a hole in the wall, jumps out, Bond follows, and I like the part where so she gets hit, goes down, and then Bond's like driving away in his boat, and then a machine gunner comes around, and Bond just turns and just takes it out in a single shot.
She gets shot in the back, but of course she's wearing a bulletproof vest.
Mm-hmm.
And so they take off on the boat, and he's saying he's trying to negotiate a price to get to Isthmus City, which is where Sanchez's headquarters is.
Mm-hmm.
And they run out of gas because apparently someone hit the fuel line when they were shooting.
A likely story. That's what Bond says. Depends on whether or not you believe him.
Yeah.
And so then we have this back and forth, which we've seen a million times in Indiana Jones movies, where first they bicker and then they hook up like immediately. I thought it was kind of funny when they were bartering about the cost of how much he was going to pay her, and does he even pay her? I don't know.
Yeah, well, he has all that money.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that. I have questions about that money. So they hook up, and then we have MI6 trying to stop Bond.
Well, you have M who's really trying to stop Bond, and Moneypenny is worried about Bond, and so she calls Q. But we don't see the results of that for a while.
Yes. Instead, we cut to them on their way to, you said Isthmus City?
Yes.
And I like the funny exchange here where she's like, why can't you be my executive secretary?
South of the border. It's a man's world.
So, you know how we've talked about how there's like racism in James Bond movies? I don't think this one's that bad.
No. In terms of... No, it's really a lot of the older ones, like the Sean Connerys, where there's yes. But this one's actually
I mean, it's not great that when you have a villain who's a drug dealer, you have him be South American. That's like a stereotype. But
well, so apparently he was like based off of a few different actual drug dealers, so it made sense. Like partly based off of Pablo Escobar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's something you would do nowadays, but it's by James Bond standards, it's not that bad either.
Yeah.
Okay, so they get in, and now is the money. James Bond has like however many $1 million in his suitcase.
4,900,000.
The bad guys are onto him pretty much immediately.
Not quite.
Not that he's a spy, but they're like, "Hey, what's the deal with this guy?"
Oh yeah, he's suspicious. Yes, because he's, a gringo who's come in and is throwing around a bunch of cash, which is kind of his plan.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's trying to get close to Sanchez, basically.
It's pretty absurd that Benicio del Toro doesn't ever see him during this part.
Well, during this time, I think Benicio is with... that's a good question. Where is he?
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure he probably has other,
I think he's over with, with Milton Crest.
I mean, it works, but it's like... This might be the only James Bond movie that I'm aware of where the villain doesn't immediately know that James Bond is a spy trying to kill
him. Maybe. I
have to think about that. All. Yeah.
But yeah, so you have Bond who goes to the Banco de Isthmus to make a small deposit of 4,900,000 to sort of to get Sanchez's attention and also to get a line of credit at the casino, which they're connected to.
Mm-hmm. And why does he do this? Just to maintain his cover?
To get Sanchez's attention, basically. So that he can get closer to Sanchez. And so we have we see sort of the inner workings of Sanchez's facilities.
Mm-hmm.
And you have Truman Lodge, who's their like financial guy, talking about how they've turned this around from into being like an investment.
Yeah, it's just business, as he says.
Uh-huh.
Also in this scene, Shaken Not Stirred comes back.
Yeah, and so you have Truman Lodge and Sanchez up in Sanchez's office watching what looks like almost like a televangelist or charity fundraiser thing.
It's like a PBS pledge drive.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for. Starring one Wayne Newton, which I thought is ridiculous.
Am I supposed to know who Wayne Newton is?
Yes.
Who is he?
He's a singer. He does shows in Vegas. You ever see the Vegas Vacation movie?
No.
Ah, wow, he's in that. Yes, he's a famous guy.
From like the 80s, though.
80s, 70s, even into the 90s. Yeah.
All right, fair enough.
But yeah, so then the deal is anytime. So Truman Lodge will call Wayne Newton, aka Professor Joe, and tell him this is how much they're trying to raise, which is actually how much their distributors need to pay for 1 kilo of cocaine.
Mm-hmm.
And so anytime that one of the so the New York branch is pledging 500, that means that they want 500 kilos.
So it's like an auction.
Yeah, an auction, or it's just a way for them to communicate with their franchises, so they don't have to do it directly.
Okay. Yeah, it's like putting an ad in the paper or something, but
yeah,
a little more subtle.
Yeah. So Bond is playing at the casino, seemingly just to try to kill time, or also just to get Sanchez's attention, I think.
Right.
So he like plays blackjack using maximums, and he like wins a ton of money.
Yeah.
And then Lupe goes down, and she replaces the dealer at Bond's table.
Mm-hmm. Indicating that his plan is working.
Yeah, so apparently she used to be a blackjack dealer before she got Sanchez's attention.
Thank you for that character moment. We didn't really need to know that, but okay. Thank you, movie.
So while this is happening, Bond sends Pam to order him a martini in the most aggressive way to say "shaken not stirred" that I've ever heard. Shaken not stirred.
You mean like because he's angry James Bond who's serious because this is a serious James Bond movie.
So while this happens, Lupe brings Bond up to Sanchez's office, and he's basically scouting the area. Notices that Sanchez has 2-inch thick bulletproof glass.
Mm-hmm. You need a cannon to get in through that. It was awesome. But fortunately, he meets Q.
Yeah.
And Q's willing to help him.
So Q comes with a bunch of gadgets, including, some plastic explosive hidden in a toothpaste tube, as well as a camera, which is actually a gun, but it also has an optical palm reader, so only he can fire it. And
it also has a laser.
Mm-hmm.
But the laser does not come back, right?
No, that was a different camera that had the laser. It was a Polaroid.
Does that ever come back?
Nope. It's just one of those things that they show for once as a gag and then never comes back.
So I'm going to be frank. I didn't really like this part.
No?
So when I read the concept of a James Bond movie where he goes rogue, it's interesting. But he still kills people and he still has gadgets. So it's really not that different. It's not like it's not like MI6 agents follow him around and back him up normally. He normally operates on his own. So now that he has gadgets, it's like basically just the same thing all over again.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would have been more interesting if he had not had gadgets and had to figure out on his own how to accomplish his objectives.
And that's what sort of has happened in 3 out of the 4 Daniel Craig movies when he goes rogue, and people have hated that fact though. That
3 out of 4 movies involves him going rogue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really like it either. Wait, what's the one where he doesn't? Is Skyfall?
Casino Royale.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think for Skyfall, for example, when he goes rogue, it's not like he's working against his government. He's just I need to do this Yeah, whatever. Maybe we'll cover it when we get there. It just didn't bother me as much as it did here, I think.
Okay. Anyway, so Sanchez is meeting with a bunch of Asian drug dealers.
Excuse me, I think you mean the Orientals.
Oh, let's not do that, please.
Okay. that's what they said.
But I'm going to choose to call them Asian drug dealers.
Okay, that is or are they? We shall see.
Yeah, well, and so while this meeting is happening, Bond sneaks outside of the window, plants the plastic explosives, and then Q brings him across the street to, a good sniper perch. And while he's trying to, get a bead on Sanchez, he's looking through the rooms in the scope. He notices Pam with Sanchez's head of security, Heller. And it's like, what the hell is she doing there?
What the hell is she doing there? I mean, so this is something that I wanted to mention, which is, are you familiar with the Roald Dahl Bond girl formula?
Yes.
Would you like to tell the audience about that?
I don't remember exactly what it is, but you can.
Okay, so yeah. I do remember. So Roald Dahl was involved with the old school James Bond movies, and he says...
So he wrote You Only Live Twice.
Okay, so he says that there's a formula where there are always 3 Bond girls. So the first one is in love with James Bond, and she's like his buddy, and she's great, and then she dies. That makes that's sad. She gets fridged, and it gives him motivation. So then there's Bond girl number 2, who's a villain, who tries to kill Bond, but then he seduces her, and then she also dies by sacrificing herself to save him. And then finally, there's the third Bond girl who is always good and is always in love with him, and she survives until the end. So I noticed this movie is not following that formula.
No, and a lot of them, it's really those Connery movies that follow that formula, and some of them Moores, but the other ones, they don't always follow that formula.
Okay, now that I know about it, I kind of want to keep an eye out and see which movies it appears in. So anyway, so he's like, what's the deal with Pam? And then he's lining up to kill Sanchez, person number 2 that he's going to kill after losing his license to kill, but is stopped.
Well, so he sets off the plastic explosives, and then he gets attacked by ninjas.
Ninjas, of course, because there's Asian people there, so of course they're going to also be ninjas. That makes total sense. I also like how the ninjas beat him up pretty easily.
Well, he wasn't expecting it.
Well, James Bond doesn't have to win every fight. It's fine.
True. But yeah, so apparently the ninjas work for Hong Kong Narcotics, and one of the guys whose name escapes me right now is a famous Asian actor. He was he's in one of the Mortal Kombat or something, I think. No.
He did look really familiar.
Yeah. But so he was one of the supposed drug dealers. He was actually working for Hong Kong Narcotics, and he was trying to get a tour of Sanchez's facilities, but of course Bond has screwed that all up now. And then so while they're having this argument, and there's also an MI6 agent there who identifies him as James Bond. Okay, nice. I'm sorry, I have to interrupt. So yeah, the guy we looked familiar, we do know him. He's Cary Hiroyuki Tagawa. Yes. And he was in Tekken, which is what you were thinking of. And also Mortal Kombat. Oh, he was in Mortal. See, I thought that he was in Mortal Kombat. Yeah, but I know him from The Man in the High Castle. Yes, he's in that too. Yeah, he's in a lot of stuff. Anyway, so while they're having this discussion, and more of an argument really, and about they're trying to send him back to London. Then Sanchez's army attacks them, finds out because somehow they figured out where he was, and kills all of. I think he kills the MI6 agent too, but he also kills all of the Hong Kong Narcotics people. It's a little bit unclear what happens, but we don't see them again. So suffice to say, they probably are dead. Yeah. We also get a scene where the Asian girl picks up an M16 and tries to fight them. It doesn't go very well. Yeah. And so for those who may not be certain of why Hong Kong's working with London, this is during the period before the handover in 1997, where Hong Kong was still under direct English control. Okay. It's just I'm not really sure why that whole subplot was there. I don't know if it really contributed very much to the movie, but it didn't really. Had a couple surprises and an action scene, so no complaints about that. So Sanchez, goes in there and finds Bond tied up, and he realizes, okay, maybe he's trustworthy, so I'll let him into my organization. Which, yeah, okay, maybe he's trustworthy. Okay, well, I mean, I guess he saw him before with his money, so he knows that he knows his way around
this sort of underworld.
And
Also,
so
the Wave Crest is coming tonight. They mentioned
yeah.
that too.
So he brings Bond back to the villa, and Bond is trying to convince Sanchez that Milton Crest is the traitor in his organization. He doesn't try to convince. He just plants the seeds of doubt and saying, they said that it was gonna be someone who's coming in tonight. They expected to get paid, and like you said, the Wave Crest is coming tonight. So he's trying to plant that seed of doubt.
Yes, and while they're talking, Bond smokes.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is the last movie where he smokes.
If you don't count cigars, yes.
I don't.
Yeah. So Lupe helps Bond sneak out of the villa. Mm-hmm. So he goes back to the hotel room and he's, confronts Pam because he's like, what the hell were you doing there with Heller and what's going on? And apparently Heller, she was making, the U.S. Attorney General's office was trying to make a deal with Heller because they found out that Sanchez had bought some Stinger missiles and was threatening to shoot down a passenger plane. And so if Heller was able to get the Stinger missiles away, then he'd get full immunity.
Well, it's just one twist after another around here.
Yeah. But because when Bond missed the shot and didn't take the shot, but it, set off the plastic explosives, Heller got frightened off and said, no, the deal's off now.
Yeah, and he tripled security. Also, during this scene, he doesn't just confront Pam. He, manhandles her.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, someone says, there's more to this than your personal vendetta.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no, there isn't. I'm James Bond.
I mean, there is, yeah. There's more going on, but yeah, it's to, and I think in that moment you see sort of a realization on his face. Oh crap, maybe I screwed up a little bit.
Yeah, you think maybe, but whatever, we'll figure it out. So then we get a scene change where there's the South America music.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? I can't sing it, but we all know if you hear it, what do we mean by South America music? Bond and Pam figure out a way to crash the Wave Crest into the harbor.
Yeah, so Pam poses as the harbor pilot for the harbor, mm-hmm. and is bringing the Wave Crest in, and crashes it into the dock on purpose, just cause a distraction. And mm-hmm. while that's happening, Bond, dives underneath the Wave Crest and brings a bunch of cash back.
Yes.
And hides the cash in the pressure chamber so that, it makes it look like Milton Crest's been hoarding the money.
And this, have you seen the John Travolta and Thomas Jane Punisher?
I have not, no.
So there's a part where he does this.
Oh.
Where John Travolta is like the mobster that mm-hmm. Thomas Jane is trying to kill. So he tricks John Travolta into thinking that John Travolta's lead henchman and his wife have been sleeping together so that he'll get him to kill them both.
Ooh.
And that's what I thought this whole movie was going to be, was him going to be tricking people left and right. But this is the only part of it. It's still good though.
Well, I think there's this and there's a little bit more of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and of course it works perfectly. Sanchez totally falls for it.
And he puts Milton Crest inside the pressure chamber, cranks up the pressure, and then depressurizes the whole thing by hitting it with an axe. And then Milton Crest explodes.
Yeah, this is probably the most famous part of this movie. It's certainly the one that I hear people talk about the most. I would not know how to kill someone with a compression chamber. I'm glad that Sanchez does, I guess. And it felt very 60s when they're playing with the dials and they have all the switches and stuff. It felt like something out of a much older James Bond movie. I don't know if they could have gotten away with having someone's head explode like that back in the day.
Not really, no.
And Bond makes it back to the island back to the compound or whatever, before mm-hmm. Sanchez even notices he's gone, which is pretty slick.
Mm-hmm.
And then Lupe makes a move on him.
Yep. And so Sanchez, throws him some money basically and says, okay, your tip's paid off. So he really trusts Bond now.
Which is, I'm not sure why. I don't feel like James Bond has given him enough of a reason to trust him.
Well, so he told him the truth. Well, a version of the truth, and told him that he's, a former British agent. So when he checked him out, okay, yeah, that's true. Makes sense. And gave him a tip of who he thought, could be behind the infiltration of his organization, who's trying to kill him, and gave him a reasonable explanation of who that could be. So it makes sense.
Yeah, it all kind of fits. Also, James Bond is very charming, and not just
Mhm.
with women. So I guess it could work. I didn't.
Yes.
It didn't bother me. I just was
Mhm.
kind of wondering about that.
Ah, okay. So, so Lupe, goes to what's that? To the hotel room to
Hmm.
warn Q and Pam, saying, Bond needs help, and of course this is where notice where Lupe lets slip that her and Bond spent the night together, which makes Pam upset,
Oh, love
and you see
triangle.
Q's like epic eye roll of, oh geez, not again.
Well, you'd think this would happen in James Bond more often, but I don't remember James Bond being caught in like a love triangle before. Do
Really?
you? Yeah.
It's happened in a few.
They usually tend to die before he meets the next one. Just ask Roald
True.
Dahl.
True.
I also like when Lupe was like, "I love James so much," and then Pam immediately makes fun of her about.
Yeah, because they've known each other for what, like a few days?
I mean, they've all only known each other for a few days, but with Lupe,
Yeah.
it's even more ridiculous.
Right. Right.
And then, but Q defends Bond. Q is like,
Mhm.
"Well, sometimes special agents have to use every means available to do what they got to do." It's like, thanks, Q. You're a real pro.
So Pam is going to help out Bond, but then her like plane apparently got dismantled and said, Sanchez ordered an overhaul of the plane.
Which is like he
So
doesn't want them to leave. Is probably
yeah,
the idea.
so she has to go and she finds like any plane that she can. So what she ends up with this like old crop duster.
Hmm. That's right.
And so Bond is going with Sanchez, Heller, Truman Lodge, and the Asian drug dealers to his distribution center, which is where Professor Joe's meditation center is. And it's a whole cover organization.
Yes, this whole elaborate complex, and I'm sure that elaborate complex will be just fine at the end of the movie.
So their whole plot is that what they do is they dissolve the cocaine into the gasoline
Hmm.
and transport the gasoline um, overseas or wherever they want to, and then when they get to their destination, they can easily extract the cocaine from the gasoline. And I looked this up, and this apparently can be done.
Okay, I mean it seemed plausible.
Hmm.
Their TED talk or whatever certainly came off as convincing,
Yeah.
but not that
So
it really matters. They could say whatever. And
mhm,
plot wise, it almost doesn't matter. It's like let's just keep it going.
so Pam is sneaking into the into the meditation center, and she's says that, oh, she's from somewhere in Kansas, and they took everyone in town took up a collection, and so she uses that to trick Professor Joe
Mhm.
and lock him inside his room.
I remember noticing in this part there's like a weird cut where she's like,
Uh-huh.
"We want Professor Joe to accept it personally," and then it like cuts.
Oh,
Do
really?
you
I
know what
didn't
I
notice
mean?
that. Mm-mm.
Might want to go back and check it. It's just like they need like a beat for him to like react or something, and then
Oh.
before you move on to the next thing. Also, I noticed when there's that big machinery and a conveyor belt, I was like, someone's
Mhm.
going into that machine.
Yep.
So Benicio del Toro recognizes Bond
Hmm.
despite his efforts to keep his face with the mask.
Yeah. So everyone, everyone taking the tour is wearing these, face masks because you wouldn't want their best customers to develop a drug problem.
Well, that's the first rule of drug dealing or whatever is don't get high on your own supply.
Hmm.
Or so they tell me.
So Benicio del Toro recognizes him, and they're doing their, drug lord TED talk, as you called it. I like that.
Yeah.
And when Sanchez is like, yeah, the best part is, if you had trouble with customs, no evidence, and he like lights the small sample on fire, which causes an little explosion, which Bond uses to his advantage to sort of get the drop on what's his face, on Dario,
Yeah.
and
I thought
also
that
like
was
kicks it
cool.
over, and then
Mhm.
like causes a larger fire.
I thought that was cool when he was like, covers blown, react, bam, hit
Mhm.
people, start a fire, run, blah, 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 blah. I mean, it doesn't
Good
work,
instincts, yeah.
but it was cool. And then it makes everybody just like react, where they're like, evacuate, fire,
Hmm.
etc. I liked all that.
Yeah. And so at this point, Sanchez and Dario, managed to get Bond back in custody, and like they put him onto the conveyor belt, like you were talking about.
Yeah, Bond is not really the best fighter in the world in this one,
Mm-mm.
but he is a spy more than like a
Yeah,
commando.
he's more about stealth, and when he's trying to be stealthy, he can be stealthy.
So let's talk about this conveyor for a minute.
Okay,
What exactly is its purpose? I know they just explained it.
It's to break up the packets of cocaine so they can dissolve into gasoline.
Okay, so why does the entrance need to be like enormous?
Because they might have a lot of supply, that needs to go through at once.
Yeah, but it's like
I don't
could they
know.
put like a grate on it?
No, because then it couldn't be used for torture.
Yeah, where that way you can't throw somebody into it.
Also, from the way that Sanchez is speaking, like, when you get up to your ankle, you beg me to kill you. It's like, it sounds like he's done this before.
Yeah, it's probably the kind of thing that apparently he's into people getting their legs cut off. He did that to Felix earlier. Okay, I mean, once again, it didn't bother me that just much. I thought it was just funny that it's like something that exists so that you can have the plot go forward.
Pretty much, yeah. So, and then while this happens, Pam finds Bond, shoots Dario in the chest. Although he's still alive after that, and then he gets thrown into the choppers.
That's right, but before that, Bond pulls a Goldfinger and starts talking about the singers and says Heller is going to betray Sanchez.
Did. Yeah, so like here. You said you were looking for more of that, so here's Bond still trying to plant those seeds of doubt. So talking about planting the thought that Heller's going to steal the stingers, and the Truman Lodge is going to steal the money, and no one who can you trust.
Well, I thought it was kind of cool how it didn't work.
Or did it?
Well, that's true. It didn't save his life in the short term, which is what it was intended to do.
But it worked in that Sanchez was growing more and more distrustful.
Mm-hmm.
And at the slightest nudge, he'd start killing his own people.
Just like John Travolta in The Punisher. Not saying they ripped it off. Or maybe I am. I don't know. So anyway, Pam arrives, eventually kills Benicio after quite a bit of effort, and then saves Bond. And he really did need saving. He was not really on his own. But then the base is exploding, and I didn't like that base exploding. I'm like,
why?
Well, because again, so like as we talked, this is supposed to be like a more gritty, realistic James Bond movie. And I'm having trouble reconciling gritty realism with bases blowing up.
Yeah, all right, fine. I mean, I think they were trying to, up the sort of 80s action movie, but they were also struggling to keep it Bond at the same time. And I think that's what part of the dissonance with this is, that it's, on one hand, it's doing that, on other hand, it's like not.
Right. I mean, it is still James Bond, and people do have certain expectations.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the only part that really jumped out to me is when it's the wide shot of them like running away from the base while like pillars of fire are coming out from the ground.
So while the bus is exploding, they're trying to get I think they had 4 tankers full of gasoline, cocaine, and they're trying to get those out of there, and.
So Pam and Bond are running, and they go through a door, and then there's a forklift with a body. Was that Heller?
That was Heller. So basically, yeah, Heller. We're not sure what Heller's motives were at this point, but he was seemingly unpacking the Stinger missiles from the chopper, and when Sanchez sees him doing that, he's immediately suspicious. Decides, no, I'm just gonna kill him. Yep. So hey, it worked.
Sure.
Bond's plan, at least, yeah.
We didn't really get that much time to know Heller, so his death doesn't really jump out. And I noticed James Bond says, "Guess it's a dead end" or something like that. It's not his best work.
Yeah.
So then they jump a golf cart, and they're on after the tankers.
Mm-hmm. And then so they get into the plane, and she drops Bond onto one of the tankers, and it turns into this huge tanker chase. There's lots of explosions.
It turns into the Road Warrior mixed with the truck scene from Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark.
I can see that. Yeah, there's a scene where they're trying to shoot one of the Stinger missiles at the tanker that Bond is driving, and he does drives up on however many wheels, one set of the wheels of them. So he's balancing it very carefully.
That was like ridiculous. Like I know that this is like I know that this is like a famous stunt. It's like one of the things this movie is famous for, that they did it a real stunt.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool, but in the context of the movie, it's like a guy's aiming a Stinger missile at you, so you like dodge it.
Uh-huh.
Why didn't he just adjust his aim 5 feet to the right? I don't know.
By that time that it fired, no way to move it.
Oh, I guess it's like he's far enough away that Bond only did the dodge after the missile was already in flight.
Yep.
Okay, maybe I just didn't get it. So he crashes his tank into another tank to stop the road, or to cut the road. So there's 4 tankers and 2 of them have been taken out. Sanchez says, who was the wormy little accountant guy again?
Truman Lodge. Truman Lodge is like, great, another $80 million write-up, Sanchez.
It's like, dude, what's your problem?
Well, he's the money guy, so he's worried about all the money, basically.
Yeah, but you're fleeing for your lives here. Let's have a little bit of perspective.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like Sanchez has plenty of money.
Well, yes, but first of all, he blew the facility in the Keys that was helping them try to do this. He just blew up his, the other facility, and now he lost $80 million worth of product.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Truman Lodge has got a point. Yeah, at some point, just try to escape and stop trying to go after this guy who's costing you even more money. And he has the great line of, well, I guess we better start cutting overhead and kill Truman Lodge.
It doesn't just kill him; you like machine guns him like a bunch of times.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, James Bond is wheeling his cab section of a tanker to get through a roadblock while the music plays. Good times.
So Sanchez catches up with him. They have a fight, and Sanchez gets covered in gasoline.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets the drop on Bond, and Bond says, "Wait, don't you want to know why?" And shows him the lighter.
Yes, I did like how they crash together and they both get hurt. That seemed very 80s action. Bond messes up sometimes too, and Sanchez goes after him with a machete.
Yep. So yeah, that machete cuts through like some gas lines. That's how he gets covered in gas.
Yeah. So anyway, so Bond pulls the lighter out, says that's why, or whatever.
Yeah. So shows him why, and I'm not. So at that range, though, I don't think Sanchez could even see what's on the lighter. But it doesn't matter because he just uses the lighter to light him on fire.
Which is awesome. I knew that lighter was going to be coming back. I just didn't see it coming in this way. And by the way, my understanding is that gasoline doesn't light on fire as easily as it does in the movies. Don't try it at home, though.
So, one of the things is like, and I think they've said it is for that scene in Daredevil where he throws a match and the DD lights up and gasoline.
That's the 2000s Ben Affleck Daredevil, by the way, not the Netflix show.
I think MythBusters or someone did something and said that it would evaporate much sooner than that, but the gasoline is absorbed into his clothing, so I think that's a difference.
In this particular case, you actually can't light someone on fire.
Potentially. I'm not sure. I've never tried it.
I mean, who cares? But just saying. Well, I'm saying like if gasoline exploded as easily as it does, we might not use it as fuel for our cars because
fair.
We're going to be driving around in like potential time bombs. So Bond actually seemed sad that Sanchez was dead. Or is that just... That's sort of the emotion I was reading off of him. But
I was reading sort of exhausted from him.
Oh, okay. That would probably make a little more sense, or like relief that it's over.
Yeah, but I can see that. So next we cut to Felix, who's awake finally,
and he seems to be in really good mood considering that his wife is dead.
Right? Yeah, that was
a really good mood.
So he's he's talking to Bond and saying, "Yeah, I heard from M. Looks like he might have a job for you. So even though we don't see it, we know at the end of this, Bond's going to go back to work for MI6. And
apparently, there's no consequences for almost punching his boss and running away from a mission that they used him to do.
They just got 008 to do it.
Well, it would have been kind of cool to see some consequences for it, but maybe that's not the sort of movie that we would expect that.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that James Bond. What are we going to do with you?
And so Bond, while he's on the phone, is at a party that, what's her name? Lupe is is hosting, along with like the president of Isthmus City.
Mm-hmm. The guy who Sanchez talked down to earlier. We didn't mention that. He's like, I allow you to be president.
So that guy, the actor who plays him, is the son of his name is Pedro Armendariz Jr. And Pedro Armendariz was Kerim Bey from From Russia with Love, one of the Bond's allies.
I don't remember him. I don't remember that movie so well, but that's kind of cool though.
Mm-hmm.
Nice to them to keep it in the James Bond family.
Yeah. So yeah, and of course, so Bond's kissing Lupe, and Pam notices, and so you get more of this sort of love triangle.
It's like a Saved by the Bell episode.
So Bond sees Pam, sulking away downstairs near the pool. So Bond decides, I'm just going to jump into the pool down there to go sort of apologize.
Is it a callback to the guy in the pool with the champagne from earlier?
Maybe. No. And so it ends with Bond and Pam, in the pool, and a winking like fish sculpture.
Right. And so I guess Bond has made his choice between Pam and Lupe anyway with Pam. Until next movie, when she'll be forgotten about. Nice to know some things never change.
Yeah.
Wow. That was License to Kill. There was a lot to be said about it.
Yeah. I don't think we have anything for spy fact or spy fiction other than the fact that apparently you can dissolve gas. Like, it is a method that some drug smugglers have used to get cocaine across borders, is diluting it into gasoline and then getting it out of there somehow.
I also would like to know if you can dodge a Stinger missile with the tanker, but I don't think anybody's tested that.
I mean, if Mythbusters was still on, maybe they would try it.
So it is time for our rating between 1 to 10 martinis, 1 being absolutely terrible, 10 being the best movie ever. How would you rate License to Kill?
Ooh, I'm going to give it a solid 6.
I will also give it a 6. And I'm not saying that just because I heard you say it. That is how I felt, which is that it is average, on the better side of average, but still nothing too amazing.
Yeah. Like I said, it's one of the ones I've seen the least of all the James Bond movies. I do like the action's good, and it's a little bit grittier in some ways. But I really like Timothy Dalton as a Bond actor, but it's not his best work. I like his other Bond movie a lot better.
I like Timothy Dalton in general. He didn't really blow me away on this one. I like him in like Doom Patrol, Hot Fuzz. He's been in lots of good stuff, but I feel like he's the most, or rather the least, talked about James Bond actor. I mean, I know you like Lazenby, but people like to talk about him because they don't like him.
No, we can talk about Lazenby another time, but I don't think people talk about with him a lot of times without having seen his movies or without a context to him or knowing why he only did one. People assume that he was fired, so that's part of why they talk about him.
Yeah, it might be one of those internet back scratching things where people just pile on without really knowing what they're talking about. Okay, well, thank you for joining us for License to Kill. Anything else you want to say before we sign off? If you want to find us online, you can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at the Spy-Fi Guys. And be sure to give us a 5-star rating on iTunes or wherever you listen to our podcast. Sounds good. Yeah. Sorry. So for the Spy-Fi Guys, I've been Christian. And I've been Zach. And we are the Spy-Fi Guys signing off. Thank you for listening to the Spy-Fi Guys. If you enjoyed our podcast, please be sure to give us a 5-star rating on iTunes. The theme song from this podcast is Mistake the Getaway by Kevin MacLeod from Incompetech.com, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0. Films, books, and television shows reviewed by our podcast are the intellectual property of their respective copyright holders, and no infringement is intended.